Hello YouTube fans, welcome back to the AJ Speed Shop YouTube channel. Today we're going to take the 1987 Buick Grand National and we're going to put it on the chassis dyno and see what it makes. Let's go. Okay, so today, guys, we're heading over to Motorsport Technologies in Houston, Texas. That's the shop that I used for my C7 C06 for my original build and tuning on that car. So we're going to take the Grand National over there today, throw it on the rollers, and see what kind of power it makes. So my entire purpose of this drill today is not actually just to find out how much power it makes. I already have a good idea of the kind of power it makes because of how fast the car has been on the quarter-mile drag strip and as fast as it's been on the dragging on the 60 to 130 testing. So today is really more of a test of the power band. And the reason that I want to test the power band is the torque converter that I have in this car is very loose. It's a PTC 9.5-inch non-lock converter, and it's currently at a 15 blade stator in it, and the converter is very, very loose. It pretty much just blows through the converter. Anytime you're at wide open throttle, the car's at 6,000 RPMs and plus the entire time. And for anyone that's familiar with these Buick V6 engines, they only make peak power at about 55 to 5,700, even on a fully built engine with really good heads and really good custom cams. So this converter, it stalls at about 5950. So pretty much the entire time that this car is at wide open throttle, it is already well past its peak power band. So I know that I'm losing a lot of power through the converter on this car. So what I wanted to do today is dyno test the car, and I want to see how fast and how much the power band drops off during a pull. And what I suspect is going to happen is at the start of the pull, it's going to be already past peak power. So that's going to be where the highest point of its horsepower is going to be, is right at the start, and I anticipate it dropping from there all the way down. And we're probably going to pull it to 6,500, and I imagine it's going to drop a lot of horsepower by the time it hits that 6,500 point. And unfortunately, the way I've been driving the car and racing the car, I've been living with it in that situation, which I know is giving up a lot of power and a lot of potential, a lot of acceleration potential. So my plan for this is I'm currently building another billet 200R4 transmission, and I have a custom built Circle D billet multi-disc lockup converter that we're going to be putting in the car. And I'm hoping that that converter is going to be spec'd right to where it will be efficient on its own. But if it's not, I can lock that converter at wide open throttle. And so for what I wanted to see today is how high do I need to rev this thing in order to allow me to lock the converter, drop the RPMs down a good 1,000 RPMs or so, and find out if I'm dropping the RPMs too low. I don't really want the RPMs to go below 5,000. So my point is today is to see how high it actually revs before it starts losing a lot of power, and try to dictate if that's where I can lock my converter to give me a good RPM drop, but not too much into the next gear. This should improve my converter efficiency 100%, and we should gain a bunch of mile an hour. I'm expecting a 4 to 5 mile an hour gain after being able to lock this converter up. The particular converter that's in this car right now, it's got about 14% slip at the end of the drag strip, at the end of a quarter mile. But it doesn't even start to couple up until about 130 miles an hour. And so 90% of the way down the track, this thing's just blowing through the converter. You can't even detect the 1-2 shift at all. And the 2-3 shift only drops about 280 RPMs. So we got to get this lined out. We want to get a 700-800 RPM drop on shifts. We want it tighter on the backside and put this engine back in its power band and hopefully gain 4 to 5 miles an hour, both either in the quarter mile and on the 60 to 130 draggy testing. Now this particular combination has been at 993 at 137 miles an hour with a 143 60 foot leaving off the foot brake. And that whiz width is blowing through the converter situation that I'm dealing with. On the street, on the 60 to 130 testing in Mexico, the car has been a best of a 601 and it's backed that up with a 609. That was in really good air. That was a minus 1200 foot DA. So that would convert over to about 140 mile an hour top speed, even with the current combination that it's got. So I'm hoping that after I get this converter swapped, I'm really going to lock this converter at the proper time to keep this engine in the proper power band, that we'll have a genuine 140 mile an hour trap, 3,900 pound brick with a Buick V6. That's kind of my ultimate goal for this thing. I would like to get it into 5s on the 60 to 130. I'd like to see it go some 570s or so with the converter swap and some further testing and playing around with the converter lockup speeds. So that's going to be this upcoming test and progress that's going to be happening on the channel here over this next month or so. Get this transmission swapped, get this converter lockup dialed in, and see how fast we can make this old brick go. So we're on the way to Motorsport Technologies. We got about another 40 or so minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and time lapse this video and get us there. And next time you see us, we should have this sucker strapped down. We're heading back home from the dyno. Sorry about some of the footage on the dyno. It did not come in as fluid as I would have liked to have had it. We had some problems with the inductive pickup on the dyno, so we were having some issues getting a good RPM trend, and so we kept having to start and stop the video. And I was actually kind of helping the dyno operator do a couple things on the computer directly to make the RPMs track. So the video is a little choppy on the actual pulls, but I believe everyone will get the gist of it. So the car ended up making the final numbers, because I know that's what everybody's interested in. The final numbers were 698 horsepower and 797 pounds of torque, and that was with the cutout open. With the cutout closed, it made 694 horsepower and like 792 pounds of torque. So the cutout was worth about 4 or 5 horsepower. The second pull that we did the cutout open, it was a hot pull, so we may have lost a little power from that. I'm sure the car would have made 700 if we would have let it cool down. But the guys up at MTI had a couple other cars they needed to tune, so I needed to get off the dyno really quick. They kind of did me a favor and just let me slide in to make a couple quick pulls and get out of their hair. So I appreciate those guys over there. So anyway, we did get an RPM trend on the last pull. The car, we pulled it all the way up to 6,500 RPMs. It didn't lose near as much power up top as I thought it was going to. It definitely nosed over some, but not bad. I'll have to analyze the data and look at the logs and everything and see what we really ended up with, but it didn't lose much. Ironically, the converter acted a lot tighter on the dyno than it does on the street. We were actually able to make a pull from about 3,500, and the converter, it did spool the turbo up, but it didn't blow through the converter on the dyno like it does on the street. So the dyno chart, as you'll see, it actually looks pretty normal. It does have a spike in the beginning on the torque curve due to the converter being pretty loose and spooling the turbo up, and you're getting that big shot of torque multiplication. But it didn't just blow right through the converter like I was expecting it to. So we accomplished what we needed to accomplish. I really wanted to see what the upper RPM range was like and see how bad it noses over up top, and it really doesn't nose over near as much as I thought. It may lose maybe 30-40 horsepower from peak power to 6,500. So it actually makes peak power about 5,000 RPMs, and it holds that all the way to about 5,800. So it's got a really wide power band, and then finally after 5,800 it starts slowly dropping before 6,500. So it doesn't lose a lot of power, maybe 30 or 40 at the most. So that's a good thing. That means we've got a good cam and head profile. The turbo, everything is working really well together. I'm real happy with the combination as a whole. So moving forward now, we'll get this we're gonna get this transmission built, get this new lockup torque converter in, and then we'll do some more testing with that lockup converter, of course, both on the draggy down in Mexico, and probably bring it back here to MTI, throw it back on the dyno, and lock it on the dyno, and see how much it picks up. I figure it'll probably gain 40 or 50 horsepower at least with the converter locking up. I expect it's probably gonna make 750 or so with the converter locked. And then not sure we're going to be able to get it back to the drag strip though, because my home drag strip, which is Houston Raceway Park, they're actually closing that track down permanently at the end of March. And so in the middle of this transmission build, I'm not going to get the transmission built and installed before the track closes. So odds are the car's probably not going to make it back to the drag strip before this track closes. There is a chance I'm going to trailer the car to another track, but it's going to be close to summertime at this point. It's going to be hot. So maybe during the winter, we'll try to do another drag test with it. We've got another track about 2 hours away. I might tow it out there and see if we can get this thing in the 970 range or so. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out today. Thanks for you guys following along and watching my videos. If you like what you see, please hit that like button. Any kind of shares, likes, subscriptions, everything, it all helps the channel grow. I appreciate all the good feedback that I've gotten in the comments so far. I try to respond to everyone that takes time out of their day to send me a message. So I appreciate all the positive feedback so far. And if you have negative feedback, I'll take that too. I'm happy to make whatever changes we need to make sure the channel is successful, and we'll just want to make a good growing channel. Ironically, as I'm driving home right now, I have a Hellcat trying to race me on my way home, and he doesn't know that we're not in Mexico, so we're not going to do that. Thanks a lot for checking in. I'll see you on the next one.